I'm super excited to share this spring meal prep with you all, mainly because I get to eat lots of tasty food. Just kidding, I of course want to share it because I think you're going to absolutely love it. We're using the component meal prep method, which basically means we're going to be creating a few different components that can be mixed and matched across different meals across the week. This leads to fresher tasting meals, but also a lot more variety in the food that you get to eat. So here's a quick look at a few of the meals we'll be creating, but first let's get cracking on the components. We'll start this meal prep by preparing one of our protein choices, and we're going for extra firm tofu. And we're just going to grate this on a coarse setting. And this tofu will be used in the curried tofu wrap and also on the tofu tacos. Push down quite hard so you get nice big shreds of tofu rather than sort of small parmesan looking pieces. You want nice long shreds. Now I would usually pat this dry, but this particular packet that I bought seems to be just already quite dry and just really firm, which is great because it saves me a job. So we're going to get our tofu into the air fryer or onto an oven tray, depending on how you want to cook it. And we're going to season this really simply. Start with some olive oil, of course, to help it get lovely and crispy. Then I'm using a generic sort of chicken seasoning here, just from the supermarket. It's got smoked paprika, yeast extract, dried onion, garlic, parsley, lemon peel, thyme, sage, and some cayenne pepper. And then I will just add an extra grating of black pepper, and then just a little drizzle of soy sauce for a bit of extra umami goodness. And then just mix that up to get it nice and combined. And then we'll cook that until beautifully crispy. Because there are so many recipes, I've made a PDF guide for you, and you just have to become a free member on my Patreon page. You can scan this QR code, or there'll be a link in the description box. For our second protein, we're going to make a lentil and quinoa mix. I've got some boiling water here, and I'm going to crumble in 1 veg stock cube to season the lentils and quinoa. This will be used in the lasagna and also the Mediterranean quinoa bowl. So I'm going in with the rinsed green lentils, or these are actually pui lentils. You could also use brown lentils if you want. And then once this comes to a simmer, we'll cook the lentils for about 15 to 20 minutes before adding in our quinoa. So while the tofu is cooking, we're also going to roast off some lovely vegetables, starting with some red pepper. And I've chopped these fairly chunkily. Nice big pieces, so they're gonna get lovely and caramelized when they roast. Then we're going in with some courgette. I've just cut these into half moons. And then finally some leek, which I've cut into rounds. And for these veggies, I'm keeping it super simple and just doing olive oil, salt and pepper. And then just get in there and get all the vegetables nice and coated in the seasoning and the olive oil. And those are going to get roasted until beautifully caramelized and soft. Okay, so the lentils have had 15 minutes, and we'll go in with the quinoa, which I have of course rinsed as well. And then we'll just cook this for around probably 12 to 15 minutes until the quinoa is nice and fluffy and the lentils are soft but sort of al dente, so they have a slight bite in them. Okay, this is looking good. The lentils are nice and soft and the quinoa has fluffed up beautifully. So I'm going to drain this off now. Cooked it for about an extra 13 minutes. Just got a bit of cheeky carrot soup heating up in the background for lunch. And here is our beautifully crispy shredded tofu. See if I can actually get it into the tub. It will seem quite dry at this point, but we're going to rehydrate it for the individual meals. Sit, sit, stay, stay. Stay. Oh! Lovely fluffy quinoa and al dente lentils. Ready for the Mediterranean quinoa bowl and the lasagna. These veggies are lovely and caramelized and soft now. They look absolutely delicious. They smell amazing. Love the color as well. Now this is definitely optional, but we're going to make some wholemeal seeded sort of naan bread / flatbreads. Well, we're doing half wholemeal and half white bread flour. And I love to make these. I freeze them in balls and then you can just make them up whenever you want them. So we've got our flour in there. We're going in with 1 packet of dried yeast. This is, I think it's called like instant active yeast. You don't have to activate it first with warm water, which is great. We'll then go in with some yogurt. I'm just using the soy yogurt. Then hot water just from the tap, as the yogurt is cold from the fridge. And then I'm just going to add a selection of seeds. So I've got a few pumpkin seeds going in, and sesame seeds, nigella seeds or onion seeds. These are really lovely, add a nice flavor. And I'm going to add in some sunflower seeds. And you can definitely just start this with a wooden spoon or a spatula so that you don't get too messy. Eventually, of course, you will need to get your hands in there. Okay, that's come together nicely. It should just clean out the bowl really easily. And it's going to be slightly sticky, but not too bad. Get that out onto your work surface or chopping board. And we'll give it a quick knead just for a few minutes. What I do is I push away, fold it over, turn it 95 degrees, push away, fold it over, and repeat. Okay, so I've kneaded this for about 5 minutes. It's slightly smoother now on the outside, and we're just going to shape it into a sort of rough ball. I put down a light dusting of flour just to make it slightly easier. Just sort of use your hands to push it together underneath, and it will form a perfect ball. And then just put a light dusting of flour into your bowl. Bread goes in. So I'll pop a damp tea towel over the top, place it in a warm place, and we'll let it rise into it's about 1.5 to 2 times the size. We're going to make a really easy roast pepper and tomato sauce that requires no cooking at all. So we're starting with a jar of roasted peppers. Into a blender, I'm going to add the liquid as well. Then we're doing 1 can of chopped tomatoes. And this sauce is going in the tofu tacos, it's going in the lasagna, and it's also going in the Mediterranean quinoa bowl. I'll just wash out this can with a little water. Next to go in is some red wine vinegar, then 1 garlic clove. And then since we're not cooking this, we won't develop lots of lovely caramelization and sweetness, for example, on the onions. So instead we'll add a little maple syrup. Then I'm going in with some dried thyme and also some dried oregano. And then instead of adding fresh onion, we're going to add some granulated onion. And then for the sort of umami flavor we would get from cooking, we're going to add in some soy sauce. Of course, the peppers are already roasted, so that does help with sort of depth of flavor. And that's pretty much it. Quick grate of black pepper, and then we'll just give that a blend. You can be quite generous with the pepper. It's going to help add lots of flavor to this sauce. I'm not going to add any salt though, as we have got the soy sauce. And then just blend until smooth. The color of this sauce is absolutely beautiful. And honestly, it tastes like you've been slaving over the stove for a good few hours creating it. It's really tasty. I pretty much always have some homemade pesto ready in the fridge. So we're going in with some baby spinach. You could use kale if you wanted, or rocket. I'm also going to go in with some parsley, but you could use any herbs that you prefer. Then some cashews. If you're nut free, you can use some pumpkin seeds and sunflower seeds, or you can use another nuts like walnuts, pistachio nuts, pine nuts. They all work really well. Lemon juice for acidity, and then a good couple of tablespoons of nutritional yeast for that cheesy and nutty flavor. Helps replicate this sort of Parmesan flavor, as with the nuts. Actually, I'm gonna go pretty heavy with the nutritional yeast. Then 1 garlic clove. I'm just gonna add it in whole. Blender, food processor will deal with that. A good grating of black pepper and a nice pinch of salt. And then of course, we're going to finish it off with some olive oil. Good few tablespoons. And that's it, we'll just blend it into a nice rustic pesto. And there you go, quick, easy, really fresh and flavoursome. And that's going to be going into the lasagna, also onto the Mediterranean quinoa bowl. And look how much we've got, so much. And this was mostly just spinach, so fairly budget friendly as well. You really don't need to add much olive oil, to be honest. That's another 5-minute sauce / pesto ready to go. So next up, we're doing some simple refried beans. These will be used in the tacos and the Mediterranean quinoa bowl. So heat up some olive oil and we're going to add a few cumin seeds, which will add little bursts of really nice aromatic, earthy cumin to the refried beans. I'm also going to zest in 1 clove of garlic. We'll just let those cumin seeds toast and the garlic is going to become nice and aromatic. You only have to cook this for literally 20 seconds on a nice sort of low, medium-low heat. And then we're going to go in with our beans. I usually use something like pinto beans or black beans for refried beans. But because we're using it in the Mediterranean bowl as well, I thought butter beans would be nice. They're also really lovely and creamy, which is exactly what you want. I'm going to add a little ground cumin as well as the cumin seeds, oregano, a touch of granulated garlic, and some smoked paprika. And we'll just let those toast off a little bit. Then after about 30 seconds, I'm going to add a small splash of sherry vinegar or a vinegar of your choice or some lemon juice. And then once that vinegar has evaporated off, we're going to add in a splash of water. And then simply just crush this into your refried beans. You could use a potato masher if you want. I'm just going to be using a fork. Nice and quick and easy, minimal washing up. Finish that off with a grating of fresh pepper and a small pinch of salt, and that's good to go. And that's just a really easy and versatile thing to add to your meal prep routine. Great for adding into bowls, sandwiches, flatbreads, onto tacos. Now for our garlicky and minty sort of cucumber sauce, yogurt sauce, basically a raita. We're going to start with a cucumber, of course, and we're going to remove the seeds. So just cut it in half and then run your spoon down the middle. And we're doing this so that we don't have a really watery raita. Then we're just going to grate our cucumber. You could finely dice it as well, that's another option. This will be going in the curried tofu naan bread. Probably going to go on the Mediterranean quinoa bowl as well. Basically the key to a good meal prep is making lots of tasty sauces and dips. I'm then just going to put the cucumber into a sieve over a bowl and then season it with a small pinch of salt. This is going to help extract the moisture and of course season it, and then just mix that through. And we'll leave that to sit just for a few minutes. Okay, so you may as well mix this up in the Tupperware that you're going to store it in. So we're just going to add some vegan yogurt. The thicker the better. Then we're going to zest in 1 clove of garlic. Then some fresh herbs. I'm using mint and coriander, and some lemon juice for acidity. So the cucumber's been sitting for a couple minutes and we're just going to squeeze out the moisture. You don't have to go too crazy, just so it doesn't make the yogurt like really watery and runny. Into our Tupperware. Maybe I should have used a bigger Tupperware. I think we'll just about make it work. And then season that with some salt and pepper as per usual. Actually, not too much salt as we've already salted the cucumber. And then just give it a good mix up. And there you go, a lovely and thick and herby cucumber, mint and garlic yogurt. And that can go into the fridge for a few days. Okay, the naan bread dough has doubled in size beautifully. So I'm just going to lightly dust my chopping board with some flour, very lightly. And then out comes the dough. And I'm just going to roughly portion this. I think we'll probably do about 6, maybe 8 actually. Let's see how it looks. I'm going to go for 6 naan breads here. I don't want them to be too small. So to shape them into round balls, we're just going to pull the outsides into the center and then roll it onto its back, and you're going to cup your hand over it and just sort of roll it around. So you're pulling it back with your hand, pushing away with your thumb. Pull, push, pull, push. Or you can literally just put your fingers over it, sort of lightly grip around it, and then just go in a circle and you'll get a nice tight ball. Hopefully that made at least a little bit of sense, maybe. And then to freeze these, I've literally just got a plate with some parchment paper on, and I'm just going to pop these on here. and then I'll freeze them, and then once they're frozen, you can pop them into a bag. I'm going to keep 2 out because I'm going to be using them today actually. But I will just put them in the fridge for now so that they don't continue proving too much. I'm just going to quickly prep some fresh veg as well. So I'm going to thinly slice some celery, and I'm just going to grate 1 carrot. This will be used on the Mediterranean bowl and in the curried naan bread. So we're going to make a big old batch of overnight oats, which we'll then make into 3 different delicious breakfast ideas. So start with your oats. We'll then add a good amount of chia seeds for those healthy fats, and it will also help thicken the overnight oats. I usually do about a tablespoon proportion. Keeping the flavorings nice and simple, just going to go in with some vanilla essence, as we will be flavoring the individual breakfasts when we make them on the day. Even though these are sweet breakfasts, I do add just a small pinch of salt. It does help bring out the flavor of everything. And then we'll go in with our milk, whichever plant-based milk you want to use. I'm going to use a mix of soy and oat milk. And then that's it, just give it a good old mix up, and we'll get that into the fridge. Make sure you mix it really well so those chia seeds aren't sort of clumping together too much. For our first recipe, using the overnight oats, we're going to make some cinnamon apple baked oats. So I'm just adding 2 portions to a dish, and then adding some ground almonds, baking powder to make them lovely and light and fluffy. And then this is optional, but I just add a little bit of self-raising flour. I find it helps with the texture. We'll then go in with our cinnamon, of course. And that is it, just give it a good old mix. I'm actually going to add a touch of maple syrup as well, just for a little extra sweetness. And then we're just going to do a few thin slices of apple to go on top. Then just simply layer your apple over the oats. And then for a finishing touch, a little sprinkle of granulated sugar. Adds a nice crunch. And a little extra dusting of cinnamon is always nice. And then that's going to be baked until beautifully golden. Okay, the baked oats are ready. They look absolutely incredible. Might have caught the apples just a tiny bit, turning the air fryer a little bit too hot, but I'm sure they're going to be absolutely delicious. Okay, next up we're going to make some chocolate peanut butter oats with a caramelized banana on top. So I'm just going to slice this banana and then lay it out on parchment paper, and I'm just going to do a small sprinkle of granulated sugar on top, just a really small sprinkle to help it caramelize. And I'm going to air fry that till beautifully golden. So I'm just going to add 1 portion of the oats to a bowl. Then we'll go in with some cocoa powder, a generous dollop of peanut butter. We didn't sweeten the overnight oats at all, so I am going to add just a touch of maple syrup. Only a little though, because we have got the banana coming. And then just give that a mix. Being careful at first, or else you'll throw cocoa powder everywhere. And then we'll just top that with that lovely caramelized banana. Looks delicious. This would be really nice with some desiccated coconut. I'm just going to do a few seeds and just a little grating of dark chocolate on top to finish it off. That's going to be delicious. I've got some lovely British rhubarb here, and I'm going to make some rhubarb cheesecake oats. So I'll just start by cutting this rhubarb into fairly small pieces, a few centimeters long. And to a hot pan, I'm adding some vegan butter. And then once that's sizzling, you can add in your rhubarb. And we'll just let this rhubarb fry just for a few minutes so it gets just a touch of color on it, a touch of caramelization. Okay, the rhubarb is going a lovely pink color. I'm going to add a little pinch of ground ginger, then some orange juice, and just a touch of maple syrup. And we'll just let that stew for just a couple of minutes until it's nice and soft. I'm actually going to add a touch more maple syrup because it is quite acidic, this rhubarb. This is kind of going to be a upside down cheesecake. So we're going to start with some of the overnight oats in the bottom. Then we'll just top that with some vegan yogurt. Followed by that beautifully pink rhubarb with a nice bit of ginger in there. And then just top that with a little granola and you're good to go. So we essentially have all the ingredients ready for this spring lasagna, except for the bechamel. So we're going to make a quick cashew bechamel. If you have a high-speed blender, then you don't have to soak the cashews. But if not, soak them overnight or for a couple hours in boiling water if not. We're then going to add our nutritional yeast to give it a really nice cheesy flavor. A little white miso that also makes it nice and cheesy and seasons it. Has a nice sort of tang to it. For acidity, I'm going to add a small splash of apple cider vinegar, but you could add a little lemon juice if you wanted to. And that's it, it's as simple as that. I'm also going to add a good grating of black pepper, and we'll blend it until perfectly smooth. To make this roast pepper sauce more into a sort of bolognese sauce, we're going to bulk it out with some of the lentils and quinoa that we cooked earlier. And just simply mix them through. Can you make a lasagna in the air fryer, Sophie? We'll find out. Okay, and now we're ready to construct the lasagna. Can you make a lasagna in the air fryer? I'm not sure, but today we're going to find out. So we're going to start with our roast pepper and lentil sauce in the bottom. A couple of spoons. Followed by the lasagna sheets. Then the cashew bechamel. Spread that out nice and evenly over the pasta. And then a nice drizzle of that pesto, just sort of dollop it in. It's going to add a really nice freshness to this lasagna. And then back to the lentil and tomato sauce. I'm going to add a handful of those roasted vegetables as well. Add even more flavor and some texture as well. Then back to the pasta. Don't worry if it's not like a perfect layer. Then back to the cashew sauce. Another drizzle of pesto. And then final layer of the lentil, tomato and roast pepper sauce. Another handful of roasted veggies. And then the final layer of pasta. And then finish it off with more bechamel. Make sure it's nicely covered. And there you go, I'm going to finish it with a sprinkle of nutritional yeast. And then it's going to go into the air fryer, I think at 160 degrees. I've never cooked this in the air fryer, so this is a bit of an experiment. Okay, air frying the lasagna worked an absolute treat. Look at that. And it is just ridiculously crispy on top. Looks so good. For the Mediterranean quinoa bowl, we're of course going to start with that lovely quinoa and lentil mix, which will add a good amount of protein and fiber to this meal. This is a really nice fresh lunch to have. Then we'll go in with some of those lovely roasted vegetables and some of the fresh veggies as well. The carrot, the celery, and I also just washed some of these spinach. Next I've got some Kalamata olives. These have got to be one of my favourite olives. Really lovely and juicy and almost meaty. A good spoonful of those refried beans. Same for the cucumber and garlic dip. And then I like to drizzle over some of this roast pepper sauce. This is basically just all about the sauces for this meal. And the spinach pesto. Now that is going to be a delicious and nourishing bowl of goodness. So next up, we're going to make the curried tofu naan bread. So I'm just going to add a touch of oil to a pan and heat up the tofu. And we'll add a little extra seasoning, which is going to be some curry powder. Just simply toast that off for about 30 seconds. Then either you can keep this tofu really crispy, or I like to add a splash of water just to rehydrate it slightly. I'm going to roll out my naan bread now, just on a light dusting of plain flour. Get it really nice and thin. It's kind of going to be a hybrid between a naan bread and a flatbread, really. While we roll this out, I've got a pan preheating, just getting really nice and hot. No oil in there though. I like to then wet my hand and just put a little bit onto the naan bread. That's going to create some steam in the pan. And then that can go in wet side down. And we'll pop a lid over the pan as well. And then once you can see that it's bubbling up nicely on one side, you can flip it over and cook it for a minute longer. And then while the flatbread is still hot, I've got a little bit of garlic butter here. I like to freeze the garlic butter in portions as well to go alongside the naan breads. Just on one side, as we don't want garlic butter on the outside, as that's just going to be messy. Then load it up with your tofu first. I'm actually going to spread a little bit of mango chutney as well, just down the side here. That's going to be really nice. Some of these fresh veggies as well. And then finish it with some of that raita. Okay, now for the hard bit, rolling it out. Probably could have put more in actually. Get a little bit more tofu on top. Lovely fluffy bread. There you go. Another delicious lunch or dinner. For the tofu tacos, we're using the same crispy tofu, but this time we're going to add in some of that roast red pepper sauce. You could add in some chipotle as well. That could be nice to give it even more of a Mexican vibe. And it's as simple as that. That is the tofu ready for the tacos. For the tacos, we're just going to heat up the corn tortillas in a dry, hot pan. Pan might not be quite big enough for free, but we'll try and make it work. Once you see some little bubbles starting to appear on the tacos, then that's a good sign that you can turn them over. And they've got a little bit of brown patches on them, which is really nice. So we're going to start with some of those refried beans. I always overfill them, so I'm going to try not to do it this time. Then some shredded tofu. A few slivers of avocado for a nice bit of creaminess. And then a little bit of fresh coriander and a squeeze of lime, and these tacos are ready. Thank you so much for watching. For another meal prep video, check out this one.